What's up, everybody? Welcome to the channel. If you're interested at all at like what makes a good perfume, like what are we buying, like how do you know if you're buying an exceptionally good product or not? And so I wanted to kind of run through some technical aspects, but also some theory stuff and kind of give you some information that you can use to kind of like propel yourself when it comes to like buying a fragrance or smelling fragrances in, say, Sephora, or buying your first niche fragrance or something like that. I want to start out with GCMS analysis, and this is a scientific technique that they shoot a odorless gas into a fragrance or like into a material, and they can actually document and actually get a planogram or information chart on what is in or what ingredients are included in the fragrance. For instance, if I wanted to make a clone of John Varvatos Artisan Pure, or a little sample into a GCMS analysis device, and it would shoot gas into the fragrance. From there, you can actually like read the chart and get pretty close to how this thing smells. That's how a lot of these companies nowadays are making so many clones, is because they're using GCMS analysis to kind of put together a recipe essentially. And then from that recipe, they can take it into the laboratory and make up the fragrance and test it side by side and really get it pinpoint accurate with some exceptional perfumers and some noses. So if you ever are interested about that, you should look up GCMS analysis. And it's quite interesting too. I mean, they can do this with a bunch of different stuff. All right, so that sets the stage for the first topic that I want to talk about, is the quality of materials. Do they matter at all? And I would say yes, they do matter a great deal. And that's where you're going to find, if a fragrance smells like really good, is if the quality of the materials that they're using are really good. So like, I know that Chanel has their own lavender farm because they produce their own lavender. So they're never going to have a lavender that smells like Chanel's because it's their own proprietary lavender. So essentially it's just like, if you put time and effort into getting quality ingredients for, say, cooking, you're going to have the foundations to making a really good dish. But you could also have really good ingredients and a really bad chef and just butcher it. So it doesn't really matter of the quality of the materials. It kind of comes down to the blending and the composition of the fragrance. Just like cooking, you can add too much salt and it would just throw off everybody. But there's some people who really like salt in their food. So quality materials, they do matter, but not like everybody thinks. That being said, the materials do matter a lot, and a lot of these fragrances nowadays use pretty much the same materials. Most of the designer fragrances nowadays and a lot of niche fragrances use a heavy dose of ISOE super. They usually use between 20 and 30% ISOE super. And then they also use a molecule called hedione, which is a jasmine derivative. And jasmine is like this nice jasmine, watery kind of fixative that kind of you can fill in your fragrance and use it up to like 20% in your concentration. And then there's these clean fixative musks that get used all across the board: galaxolide, ethylene brassylate, so on and so forth. I won't get into too many fragrance specific molecule names, but essentially there's about 70 or so that just get used across the board for the majority of all the fragrances on the market nowadays. And then 20% of that concentrate is being manipulated in a way to smell like a vanilla fragrance or a nice jasmine floral fragrance. So it's kind of just, they're working in that 20%. So when people talk about like the quality of the materials and stuff, yes, it does matter, but it all comes down to how they blend it, how they use it in a formula. All right, let's talk about the difference between niche and designer. Going back to the materials and stuff, a lot of people really like niche fragrances because they smell like lavender or they smell like mint. They don't smell like a jumble chemical mess to mass produce and sell to the masses. As an example, for a niche fragrance, you would just have lavender in there. You would just use lavender and it would smell like a lavender fragrance. But with a designer fragrance, they can use linalool, Lyrol acetate, dihydromercenol to kind of mix together and create a clean lavender accord. They have this lavender out there called 4042 or something, a lavender 4060 or something, but it is 40% lavender and 60% linenol and lyrol acetate and dihydromercenol, so that all of your fragrances will always smell the same. But when you just have lavender, there's gonna be some differences in there because it's, naturally produced. It's not chemical sludge, essentially. I mean, it's in everything. It's not chemical sludge. It's safe. Linenol is actually an allergenic. So if you are allergic to fragrances at all, linenol might be the reason for that because it is an allergenic. You do have to disclose that on a box for production. All right, going off of this, the designer versus the niche and stuff, I think the biggest difference between designer and niche is the vapor evaporation rate. And so like a citrus, like a lemon, is going to evaporate a lot faster than, say, a heavy wood would. If you have a cedar wood, it's going to evaporate at a much slower pace than, say, a lemon oil. All right, so this is like a designer fragrance. It's gonna start like with a, high, citrus top here at the top, and then it's gonna start slowly trickling down. And all of this is like fragrance ingredients that can really make this balance happen. So it's like, linenol, lyrol acetate, isoe super, hedione, to really make this just kind of smooth descent. And this is just a brief example, but this is like a niche fragrance. You're gonna have a nice top in the opening, and then it's gonna drop off quickly after the citrus, after the lemon character just wears off. Then you're gonna have like a nice cedar wood, and then that's gonna carry over and drop off to the nice base. So there's a story being told here. It's not just one balanced out fragrance. And so with designer fragrances, they're making the fragrances for a nice opening top, and then they just dry down into a steady stream to where you just smell good for a very long time, and then it just slowly dies off. Where niche comes in, like a true niche indie perfume, kind of niche, kind of quality fragrance, they're going to tell a story in the top, and then they're going to drop that down, and they're going to tell a story in the base, and then they're going to drop that down, and they're going to tell a story in the deep dry down. And so they use heavy amounts of materials so that they just dry off really quick, and then they tell another story. So they would add a bunch of lemon, and instead of adding like linenol and lyrol acetate to support the lemon to carry its life into the mid, they'll just add lemon, and then that will dry off, and then the cedar wood will come up right up after that. And then you'll get a heavy dose of cedar wood in the fragrance in the mid, and then that will dry off, and then you'll be stuck with like the nice musky, patchouli, heavy base. And so it's telling a story. Whereas designer fragrances are designed to, they use molecules to balance out the top, the middle, and the end, so that it's a very nice seamless approach. It's not like this heavy drop off. But niche fragrances, they're looking to more tell a story. They're looking more to have the sharper drop offs, the sharper edges. And a lot of people like that. That's why a lot of people are really drawn to niche fragrances. All right, so how can you learn how to identify really, really high quality fragrances? I would say you don't have to jump too deep into it, but I would say buying some raw materials, like ordering a discovery set at the Perfumer's Apprentice, so that you can smell raw materials, so you can see what these fragrances are based off of, so that you can really start understand how they're all crafted together. If you are a fragrance enthusiast, if not, I don't really think it matters all that much. What you're going to look for if a fragrance is high quality, if it's a designer fragrance, you want to not smell so many drop-offs. If there's a huge drop-off and it just smells like, there's a molecule called Cologne, if it just like drops off and Cologne is just there, and Cologne and musk, because Cologne is a solid when it's in room temperature, so that one is going to last for a lot longer. You know that the quality is not all there because it just drops and it's gone. Anyway, it's a fascinating process, but I would say if you wanted to learn and train your nose, buy some raw materials and dilute them down into like perfumer's alcohol so that you can smell individual ingredients, and then you can really start formulating opinions based off of your knowledge on raw materials. That's what I do. I smell raw materials and I can really understand how fragrances are composed. Let me know if this video was helpful at all. I would love to know your thoughts in the comments down below. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time.